Even the most law-abiding citizens can have their world turned upside down and end up facing serious criminal charges in the blink of an eye. It may sound dramatic, but it is a reality. I heard of a case where a motorist was driving in the evening, so visibility was not as good as during the day, when suddenly he saw a pedestrian in front of him. He slammed on the brakes, but unfortunately collided with this person. It turned out that the pedestrian was drunk and had just run in front of the vehicle and was instantly killed. The driver was charged with culpable homicide because measurements of braking distance indicated that he had been driving in excess of the speed limit. One would have to scrutinize the report to ascertain if indeed he had been driving over the speed limit or not. But the point is that his future hung in the balance of the accuracy of the person who did the measurements at the scene of the accident. And then there was all the psychological trauma of having killed someone and also facing a long and expensive criminal trial. His world was turned upside down in a blink of an eye. We simply have no control over what can befall us during the course of the day. I had a similar matter, fortunately not as tragic though. My client was driving on a busy road when he heard a thud at the back of his vehicle. He had no idea of what caused the thud, and he drove a little way on, maybe 10 meters or so, and then saw a person in his rearview mirror lying in the road. He immediately stopped and ran to see what happened. It turned out that a young woman had collided with the rear of his vehicle, or the rear of his vehicle had collided with the woman, but either way, she needed to be rushed to hospital. She suffered a broken leg. My client was charged with reckless and negligent driving. The problem is that the accident happened in the vicinity of a pedestrian crossing. The client said he did not see anyone at the crossing when he approached it, nor when he was actually on the pedestrian crossing. He said that he heard the thud just as he was over the crossing or had already passed it. If that was correct, it would mean that the pedestrian had not tried to cross the road at the crossing, but somewhat on the side of the crossing, or that he was already on the crossing when she tried to cross. This made sense because if she had actually been on the crossing, the client would have to have been almost over the crossing if she collided with the back of his vehicle. Also, she was lying in the road a few meters away from the crossing after the collision. Fact gathering and evaluating the police report, it seemed to show that she was running to catch a bus on the other side of the road and that she had actually been obscured by vehicles at the crossing. It was probable that she did not see the driver and that she had not tried to cross the road on the white lines of the crossing, but had emerged from between two parked vehicles and that she was not actually on the lines themselves. Basically, it always comes down to the evidence. The difficulty is always with how the scene is reconstructed in court through evidence and witnesses introduced at trial. The worst part is that if the accused is of a highly nervous disposition, as was with the client, they do not make a good witness. A good prosecutor can make mincemeat of a perfectly innocent accused. There are always many aspects to consider when dealing with criminal matters and trials. In the end, we managed to avoid trial. My representation on behalf of this client managed to turn this matter to mediation. I mediated a positive outcome for both the client and the complainant. He agreed to pay her medical bill and she agreed to withdraw the charge. So, the moral of the story is that even if we are vigilant, we can still sometimes end up in trouble that's not of our own doing. That's when you need to have someone experienced helping you navigate your way out of the problem, which just happened to drop on your head from absolutely nowhere.